Hello, welcome to another episode. Maligayang pagdating. Bienvenidos to another episode of the First World Manila podcast. I'm your host, Ramon Rodrigo Calo Cuenca, CFA, founder and director of First World Manila. This podcast, of course, is about talking about issues to help resolve the deep-seated problems of the Philippines, both social, cultural, political, and economic. So, today's episode is going to be a very short one because I'm actually quite busy. This month, I'm preparing for an art exhibit, among other things. I'm actually juggling several businesses, but one of the things I'm doing is fine art. Actually, for this brand, so I actually do fine art for the First World Manila brand. So it's more than just a podcast, and I'm going to be exhibiting in Art in the Park. I think it's in March. I guess it's in Makati. Is it Legazpi Park? I'm not sure. Somewhere there. But as the details pop up closer to the date, I'll let you know. Excuse me. I'll let you know, and yeah, please come over and visit me when you can during Art in the Park. But yeah, so I'm busy with that, preparing for that. So this episode is going to be a short one. But of course, not to worry, in the future we will have longer episodes. But anyways, let's get to it. Today's topic is going to be about Clark. Um, Clark, as many of you know, is a former U.S. Base here in the Philippines. Not was it? It's in the province of Pampanga. It's about maybe 2 hours no traffic, a 2 hour drive away from Manila to the north, and yeah, it's I think because of its development, its historic development as a base for the U.S. There are sort of wide roads and it's relatively clean, and there happens to be a horse, excuse me, a trail riding um, event there. I won't say events, excuse me. There's a trail riding. Well, there's basically there's trail riding there. And trail riding, for those of you not familiar with it, is basically riding a horse along a trail. So, my father and I like riding. My dad used to be a polo player actually, so and I've recently gotten back into it. I used to hate it when I was a kid, but as I got older, I got more appreciation for it. Excuse me, I got more of an appreciation for it. So I do go riding with him occasionally, and it was a good way to get away from the city for a bit. So we went last week to Clark to go trail riding on horseback. And what's interesting about Clark, and I was thinking of course, I'm always thinking about new topics to talk about for this podcast, and um, on the way to and from Clark, I was thinking about how I could fit this excursion into the First World Manila podcast, and I was thinking about how everything is kind of clean there, at least in some parts. In Clark, there are wide roads. There aren't too many people, at least during the weekday. And I mean, I was quite surprised, even outside of the naval base area per se, like the parts that are sort of populated with Korean restaurants, for example. I mean, the roads were nice, it was pretty clean, not too many people. It's almost what Manila or what parts of Manila should be like. So, yeah, that struck me as interesting, and I just wanted to go over with you guys what we saw during the trail ride, um, and my thoughts about how it could be, how we could develop this kind of thing further. Because the reason why I'm talking about sort of nature, scenery, and that kind of stuff is that it's potentially a good, tourism stream, and excuse me, tourism revenue stream. And I bring that up because I went riding with my father also in Mongolia in 2013. We went to the Gobi Desert. We went to a nature reserve called Iknart, and that was seriously one of the greatest experiences of my life. So, If you hear me, Dad, if you listen to me, Dad, I admit it was great, and I'm glad I went. Um, but it was so fantastic because we were out in nature, we were camping, well, more like glamping because the tents were, very nice. They weren't, it wasn't like we pitched a tent ourselves or anything like that, but it was so beautiful just being out there for a couple of days, just riding around, seeing nature and stuff like that. I have pictures of it, but I don't want to go into too much detail because this is a podcast about Manila and the Philippines. But um, and I feel like that's something where if we really took the steps to kind of further that kind of idea of nature. I mean, there's a lot of nature adventure or ecotourism in the Philippines, but this one is something that I like because it's you're in a way you're kind of when you're riding a horse, you're riding an animal, and you're going through nature. You kind of I feel like you're kind of closer to it, and you get a much stronger sense of the land you're in. And it's a good way, obviously, because I mean, ecotourism is good, and obviously raising awareness for the environment or instilling a love of the environment in people is a good thing as well. Um, so, and as you know, my whole thing is we need to have a stronger sense of national identity and pride in order to get things done in the political and economic spheres. So these things are important. All right, so I'm gonna go through if you're watching me on YouTube, or if you're not watching me on YouTube, if you're listening to me on audio only, I'm going over some photos I took and really quickly, and just want to describe what I saw for those of you who are listening audio only, and for those of you who are watching on YouTube, well, you can see what I'm talking about. So let's start. This first picture is when we were setting out the from this I guess from the what do you call it, I wouldn't call it base camp, but the the headquarters of the excursion of the trail riding tour. So you can see there's a lot of big, beautiful acacia trees. I mean, what struck me actually about during this trail ride was that when you think of nature in the Philippines, you think of jungles, but when you're out in a place like Clark, it's more like I wouldn't say plains, but it's not really jungly either, and I don't think all of that is man-made. I think maybe we did have plains and sort of the foothills, and it's quite nice actually because it's not what you normally think about when you think of a tropical country. You normally think of beaches, et cetera, et cetera. So it's another way of looking at our beautiful country and really seeing another side of it too. That we don't, at least for me, I don't see too much or hear about in the media, which tends to focus more on beaches, for example. So it's another way of looking at things. So all these nice acacia trees, right? Here's another one. They're huge, so beautiful. There's our horses. That's me over there. It was quite sunny that day. It was nice too because if you go in January, February riding, it's not that hot. It's not that humid, especially now. Maybe because of global warming. I mean, the weather was obviously quite cool for a bit here. The wind was quite nice, so that's also one reason why we went. Um, so even though there was, we weren't. I think we were pretty close to one of the roads. It was still nice because there's basically, and this is what's lacking in Manila, are these green spaces. As many of you know, we don't really have a strong, we don't really have really strong public spaces for parks and things like that. At least not anywhere near to the extent of other cities in the world. Look at all these beautiful acacia trees. You know what though? It does. You know what's kind of weird? I'm going a little bit off topic here, but we don't have green public spaces really, but we have green private spaces because looking at these fields and the acacia trees reminds me of like Alabang Village and like the country club there. So it's interesting. Like, and again, it's a very unfortunate aspect of our culture that we just think about the private only, not the public. And that has to change, obviously. All right. So more acacia trees. So it was nice too, and I'm gonna skip past these pictures of me and my dad riding. Um, we caught like a beautiful white crane flying around here. We were able to take pictures of it. You can't see it that well, but it was a crane. And I normally don't think about cranes when I think about Philippine fauna. So it's interesting that we have this kind of stuff flying around, these kinds of animals flying around in the fields here. And the reason why, again, I'm talking about animals is because it's really cool when you go riding and you see animals you don't normally see ever. So, what else did we see here? Carabao. There's a really cool picture I want to show you guys. And there are streams too as well. Here, it's like something out of like what's it like an Amor Solo painting or something. There's literally like this family of what do you call that? A family of what would you call a Carabao family? I heard of Carabao. I don't know, but they're all there, hanging out in the shade in the water. It's just nice to see. It's nice to see because it was unexpected, and that's sort of why I feel like riding out in the nature really gives you a much more, and I think everyone should do something like that. I mean, all of a citizen should have. We should instill some stronger love of nature for our citizens. Excuse me, for our citizenry because it makes you love your home more. And it's just fun to see these animals there when you're riding. It was unexpectedly, right? So it was quite nice. So very peaceful, very chill ride. Yeah, we spotted several carabao in the streams, hanging out in the shade, and yeah. I'm gonna scroll a bit more forward. I did. I don't know if the. Oh, see, that's a beautiful shot. Look at that. That huge acacia tree out in the distance with some like animals nearby. It's very bucolic. It's very nice. I mean, it sounds kind of corny and cliche, but it's nice to see that um, that exists outside of the city. Okay, well, I don't think he was able to catch it, but the photographer wasn't able to catch this other crane flying around, so it was really nice, basically. It's just kind of random. There's a pig eating garbage. One of the less glamorous shots of this trip, but yeah. Anyways, see, I don't know much about Philippine flora or any flora for that matter, but it's nice to really see these huge trees and make it accessible to people, and especially, for maybe people who have fewer means to education. It's good for them to just see it and explain things to them, and then, but that again, that of course ties in with educational reform. So, and because obviously the environment means so much, and I tend to believe that it it's generally the less educated people who pollute more. I don't know if that's true though, because um, I mean I do believe that, but in some ways not everyone's like that, even in the other way around. Because I remember one time I was in this basketball court in the village, and people like literally just threw their trash everywhere except for the garbage bins, even when it said, "Please throw your trash in the trash cans." It's so weird. Anyways, again, this obviously all these things go back to I wouldn't say just our education system, but also leading by example. So some of you have heard how I want to start sort of a civic movement for these things. It has to be something like that as well. Like we have to be um, emphatic about these things and lead by example by cleaning up and everything like that. Although I don't know if you guys saw this, but there's been this footage about Manila Bay being cleaned up by people and like just people just volunteering to clean it up. So I think we have that. There are definitely people there who do care. The question is uh, how to make it love for the environment and cleaning up more more universal in our culture. And maybe that just involves enforcing the law. I don't know, but I mean, you can listen to all my podcasts previous to this podcast, and you can go and I go into detail there about like the law and the independent civil service that's needed. But yeah, all these things are everything is connected basically, and having a clean and green city and country is sort of an outgrowth of that. I mean, we have to fix what's sort of the core issues here. Um, yeah, and that's it. I might be going abroad next week. I'll let I'll let you guys know maybe on Facebook what my schedule is. But if I do, I'm going to a city abroad. And I sort of want to do a podcast following that about what what Manila can learn from that city if things, assuming the trip happens. So if it does, um, you will know what I'll be talking about next or very soon in the future. In the meantime, today's Spanish-Tagalog dictionary or vocab is a verb. Can you guess what it is? It's horse riding. So the verb is to ride a horse. Mangabayo in Tagalog and montar a caballo in Spanish. So our word for horse, caballo, comes from Spanish caballo, which is pretty much the same phonetically, but the spelling is different. So in Spanish, it's Caballo. So montar a caballo, literally to ride a horse. So the conjugation for that is yo monto a caballo. So magabayo ko. Again, this is the present tense. So tu montas a caballo. So ikaw, so mangabayo ka. So él or ella monta a caballo. So that means mangabayo siya. And then we have nosotros montamos a caballo. So that's mangabayo kami or tayo. Vosotros, vosotras, let's see. Let me just get this right here. Yeah, vosotros montáis a caballo. So that's mangabayo kayo. And then of course you have ellos or ellas or ustedes. That's them or they. And also you in a formal matter. So that's ellos montan a caballo. So that's mangabayo sila. All right. So there we go. I will see you next week. In the meantime, take care. Ingat.